session 2 of the Law of One. And this session took place January 20th, 1981. Now, if you remember from our last session, it was fairly quick, mainly because the person who was doing the channeling, secret government loophole could save your life. Yeah, doubt it. Anyway, the person that was channeling was rather tired and got fatigued easily. I know in this particular one, we go into more history of Ra themselves, as well as how to tune the instrument. Now, if you happen to be a channeler, you might be interested to hear this, especially because it gives you pretty detailed instructions on what to put where and all that stuff. Pardon me, and we'll get into that in a minute. So, also in an effort to save my voice and prevent everybody out there from having to listen to me read with fatigued eyes today, I am going to make the computer read for Ra. So, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and start. And again, this is session 2, January 20th, 1981.
I am Ra. I greet you in the love and the light of our infinite Creator. I am with this mind/body/spirit complex which has offered itself for a channel. I communicate with you. Queries are in order in your projections of mind distortion at this time/space. Thusly would I assure this group that my own social memory complex has one particular method of communicating with those few who may be able to harmonize their distortions with ours, and that is to respond to queries for information. We are comfortable with this format. May the queries now begin.
Basically, they're saying, yo, man, what's up? How's it going? We're ready to talk. What kind of questions you got for us? And the first one our lovely questioner asks is, I'm guessing that there are enough people who would understand what you are saying, interested enough for us to make a book of communications with it. And I wondered if you would agree to this. Us making the book, I mean. And if so, I was thinking that possibly a bit of historical background on yourself would be in order. And then there was an inaudible question, of course. And the answer come fortheth.
I am Ra. The possibility of communication, as you would call it, from the one to the one through distortion acceptable for meaning is the reason we contacted this group. There are few who will grasp, without significant distortion, that which we communicate through this connection with this mind/body/spirit complex. However, if it be your desire to share our communications with others, we have the distortion towards a perception that this would be most helpful in regularizing and crystallizing your own patterns of vibration upon the levels of experience which you call the life. If one is illuminated, are not all illuminated? Therefore, we are oriented towards speaking for you in whatever supply of speakingness you may desire. To teach/learn is the law of one in one of its most elementary distortions.
Basically, they're saying, yeah, we're down with that. You can write a book. It's the desire to teach or learn is the law of one at its most elementary distortions. Now they call distortions a lot thoughts or principles or everything's like a distortion, and that is a distortion of the original thought. So in this particular case, they're saying, we come to communicate with you through this person. However, if you want to share those communications with others, we have no qualms against that, really. Plus, sharing and learning and teaching and learning are the same thing to them, right?
Makes sense. If you really want the whole of the energy force on this planet to get to a point where it can be, as they described it, harvested for the next level, then you would actually really need to get the information out.
Exactly. And that's, what they say there. it would be most helpful in regularizing, I love their words, and crystallizing your own patterns of vibration upon the levels of experience that you call life. So he continues. He says, well, could you tell us something of your historical background? Your earlier times in the illusion and the time state, I'm not exactly sure what that means, contact, possibly your incarnation on this planet that you spoke of before and the contact with earlier races on this planet. Then we would have something to start with in writing the book. And then Ra has a whole bunch to say. So here it comes. Maybe. If I can get it to work.
I am RA. We are aware that your mind/body is calculating the proper method of performing the task of creating a teach/learning instrument. We are aware that you find our incarnate, as you call it, state of interest. We waited for a second query so as to emphasize that the time/space of several thousand of your years creates a spurious type of interest. Thus in giving this information, we ask the proper lack of stress be placed upon our experiences in your local space/time. The teach/learning which is our responsibility is philosophical rather than historical. We shall now proceed with your request, which is harmless if properly evaluated.
And that was part of their answer. They go on, of course, to say more, which is this.
We are those of the Confederation who 11,000 of your years ago came to two of your planetary cultures which were at that time closely in touch with the creation of the one Creator. It was our naive belief that we could teach/learn by direct contact and the free will distortions of individual feeling or personality were in no danger, we thought, of being disturbed as these cultures were already closely aligned with an all-embracing belief in the liveness or consciousness of all. We came and were welcomed by the peoples whom we wished to serve. We attempted to aid them in technical ways having to do with the healing of mind/body/spirit complex distortions through the use of the crystal, appropriate to the distortion, placed within a certain appropriate series of ratios of time/space material. Thus were the pyramids created.
What? Pyramids were created then?
You mean to tell me they weren't built by 20,000 slaves?
No, there were no slaves in Egypt. And I can't stress that enough. There were no slaves in Egypt. But that's beside the point. So basically they're saying, hey, and this goes on, trust me. We're going to take it each page at a time, so to speak. So they first came here and there were peoples, two different cultures, which were at the time closely in touch with the creation of the one Creator. And those would be what we see as the Mayans. And I believe the Aztecs, or it might be even somebody in South Africa. I'm not 100% sure on that, because there's so many at this point in time that were so closely related. They came, people welcomed them, and they attempted to show them technologies to help heal them with the use of crystals. Now, anybody who's interested in crystal magic, if you will, or crystal healing, the stuff works miracles. You got to try it. I highly suggest it. So,
No, they said it was a naive belief that it would not alter the distortions, as they call it.
well, they also view distortions as individuals, right? Each person, they don't see us as individuals, they see us as a whole, but these distortions can be individuals. So their naive belief that they could teach or learn by direct contact. And yeah, it goes on here. Listen to the next one.
We found that the technology was reserved largely for those with the effectual mind/body distortion of power. This was not intended by the law of one. We left your peoples. The group that was to work with those in the area of South America, as you call that portion of your sphere, gave up not so easily. They returned. We did not. However, we have never left your vibration due to our responsibility for the changes in consciousness we had first caused and then found distorted in ways not relegated to the law of one. We attempted to contact the rulers of the land to which we had come, that land which you call Egypt, or in some areas, the Holy Land.
Okay, so they're talking about the group in South America, which is the Mayans. They didn't give it up. So let's go back a little bit. So they found the technology that was reserved largely for those with effectual mind-body distortion of power. So people who were effective with this technology used it for their own personal gain and not the gain of the people. And that's not what is intended by the law of one. The law of one is unity, remember? And so they distorted that unity. And that's why they left. They meaning Ra, the peoples of Ra, if you will. They returned, we did not, meaning that some of those from the South American tribes that wanted to spread the word came back. The people of Ra did not, or the consciousness of Ra did not, rather, although they were people at that point.
That seems like a very vicious cycle that we're looped in right now. The people with the knowledge are in power and they don't have any intention of sharing that knowledge.
Exactly, and that's one of the biggest sins, if you will, of mankind is not giving information, not teaching, not letting people teach / learn / teach. And then the consciousness of Ra never left our vibration or our dimension, if you will. We'll just call it that for now. Because they felt responsible for the changes in consciousness. So they had given us the ability to heal, right? And probably a little beyond that, but the changes in consciousness to the ones that became powerful, if you will, they felt responsible for that. And so they didn't leave. They attempted to contact the rulers of the land which we had come, to that land which you call Egypt or the Holy Land. And we'll go on.
In the 18th dynasty, as it is known in your records of space/time distortions, we were able to contact a pharaoh, as you would call him. The man was small in life experience on your plane and was what this instrument would call, wanderer. Thus, this mind/body/spirit complex received our communication distortions and was able to blend his distortions with our own. This young entity had been given a vibratory complex of sound which vibrated in honor of a prosperous god, as this mind/body complex, which we call instrument for convenience, would call Amun. The entity decided that this name, being in honor of one among many gods, was not acceptable for inclusion in his vibratory sound complex. Thus, he changed his name to one which honored the sun disk. This distortion, called Aten, was a close distortion to our reality as we understand our own nature of mind/body/spirit complex distortion. However, it does not come totally into alignment with the intended teach/learning which was sent. This entity, Akhenaten, became convinced that the vibration of one was the true spiritual vibration and thus decreed the law of one.
Sound familiar?
Good for him.
So they contacted Akhenaten, and you'll have to excuse the computer's inability to pronounce some words like Ra. Instead it's R-A. Anyway, so Akhenaten is the famous or infamous Egyptian pharaoh who changed from a polytheistic or multi-god society into the monotheistic or single god society. And that didn't go so well with a lot of Egyptians. In fact, it went so poorly after he died or was murdered. We don't know for sure. Um, it ended up being one of those things where they tried to erase all of his stuff from history. A lot of the stuff for Akhenaten, who was King Tut's father, by the way, was erased from, it was chiseled off. His face was removed, he was cut, anything dealing with him was either, or most of the stuff dealing with him was chiseled away and trashed, basically. So, and that's what they're saying, that they gave them the instrument for convenience they would call Amun, or the sun disk. And the entity Akhenaten, decided that his name, being in honor of the one among many gods, was not acceptable for inclusion in his vibratory sound complex. Thus, he changed his name to one which honored the sun disk, the distortion called Aten, which, if you know anything about Akhenaten, he named himself after the sun disk, Aten, Akhenaten, Akhenaten. And that distortion called Aten, or that quote unquote entity or thought called Aten, was a close distortion to our reality as we understand our own nature of the mind body spirit complex. However, it does not come totally into alignment with the intended teach/learning which was sent, and Akhenaten became convinced that the vibration of the law of one was the true spiritual vibration, and thus decreed the law of one, or the single God pantheon.
And that's another loop I feel that we're caught into. Anytime a person in power has the right idea and they try to implement it, they try to teach people, they try to do whatever it takes to get people to grow a clue, they get knocked off.
Of course, because, people want power, and the knowledge is power. So if you discredit somebody, they don't have power anymore. So this is where they say this.
However, this entity's beliefs were accepted by very few. His priests gave lip service only, without the spiritual distortion towards seeking. The peoples continued in their beliefs. When this entity was no longer in this density, again the polarized beliefs in the many gods came into their own and continued so until the one known as Muhammad delivered the peoples into a more intelligible distortion of mind/body/spirit relationships. Do you have a more detailed interest at this time?
So there's where they basically let you know. However, Akhenaten's views were not accepted by many, which we all know. And his priest, I love that they say that. His priest gave lip service only, without the spiritual distortion towards seeking. So they basically said what they had to, only for the purpose of not getting killed. And the people continued their multi or polytheistic beliefs. And then when this entity, they're again talking about Akhenaten, was no longer in this density, meaning he is dead, again, the polarized beliefs in the many gods came into their own and continued until Muhammad showed up and started talking about one God. All right. And then we ask, well, we're interested in the entire story, so that you have to tell, and we're interested in the entire story that you have to tell. God, see, this is why I'm making the computer read, because I suck at it today. And getting into the law of one in quite some detail. There will be several questions that I'll ask as we go along that may or may not be related directly to understanding the law of one. However, I believe that the proper way to present this as a teach/learning vehicle to the population of the planet is that that will read it at this time to investigate different facets of what you tell us. You spoke of crystal healing. One other thing I might mention is that when the instrument becomes fatigued, we want to cut off communication and resume it at another time, at a later time, after the instrument is recharged. And if the instrument is suitable at this time, I would like to a little discussion of the crystal healing that you mentioned. Crystal healing.
IMRA. The principle of crystal healing is based upon an understanding of the hierarchical nature of the structure of the illusion, which is the physical body, as you would call it. There are crystals which work upon the energies coming into the spiritual body, there are crystals which work upon the distortions from spirit to mind, there are crystals which balance the distortions between the mind and the body. All of these crystal healings are charged through purified channels. Without the relative crystallization of the healer working with the crystal will not be properly charged. The other ingredient is a proper alignment with the energy fields of the planet upon which you dwell and the holistic or cosmic distortions or streamings which enter the planetary aura in such a manner that an appropriate ratio of shapes and placement within these shapes is of indicated aid in the untangling or balancing process. To go through the various crystals to be used would be exhaustive to this instrument, although you may ask us if you wish in another session. The delicacy, shall we say, of the choosing of the crystal is very critical and, in truth, a crystalline structure such as a diamond or ruby can be used by a purified channel who is filled with the love/light of one in almost any application. This, of course, takes initiation, and there have never been many to persevere to the extent of progressing through the various distortion leavings which initiation causes. May we further inform you in any fairly brief way upon this or another subject?
So they're basically giving a little bit of information about crystal healing. They're saying, you basically, a diamond or a ruby, which has a crystalline structure that's appropriate to just about everybody's physical body, can be purified and used by somebody who's filled by the light or love of one in almost any application. And that there's an initiation process. And there have been few people to persevere to the extent of progressing through the various distortions or levels, if you will, leaving the initiation performed. Basically, there's very few people who have ever gone through the process of learning enough about it to be able to teach it effectively.
I think that's saying, is it like too much trouble for people to learn? Is it too difficult?
Well, it's pretty intense. Now, Ayurvedic healing and chakra healing uses a lot of crystals. It's a very basic and very, there are very different levels of Ayurvedic healing. Or Ayurvedic, I can't pronounce that either today. But it's basically healing the energy centers, and then you have things like acupuncture which aid in that. But there's basically 7 chakras, right? Red, orange, yellow, blue, green, indigo, and violet. Yeah. And they start at basically your butt, or at the root chakra between the orifices of the lower body and progress all the way up to the top of the head or the crown, at any rate. So he goes on and he says, yes, you mentioned that the pyramids were outgrowth of this. Could you explain a little bit on, were you responsible for building the pyramid, and what was the purpose of the pyramid? Oops. Might help if I hit the right button. And Ross.
IMRA. The larger pyramids were built by our ability using the forces of one. The stones are alive. It has not been so understood by the mind/body/spirit distortions of your culture. The purposes of the pyramids were to: firstly, to have a properly oriented place of initiation for those who wished to become purified or initiated channels for the law of one. 2. We wished then to carefully guide the initiates in developing a healing of the people whom they sought to aid and the planet itself. Pyramid after pyramid charged by the crystal and initiate were designed to balance the incoming energy of the one creation with the many and multiple distortions of the planetary mind/body/spirit. In this effort we were able to continue work that brothers within the Confederation had effected through building of other crystal-bearing structures and thus complete a ring, if you will, of these about the Earth's, as this instrument would have us vibrated, surface.
So, basically, they're saying, yeah.
So they're saying the stones are alive, which again would tie in my mind to the I am that I am everything. Everything is my energy from the original creator thought. And therefore, if you can tie into that energy, you can get it to do what you want. And that to me makes a lot of sense with the pyramids, because those blocks are how big, how heavy, and
anywhere from a couple pounds all the way up to 500 tons or something like that.
And
but
how do you move that on wood?
Well, and they're basically saying, if you looked at that, and we'll go back one, that they were built by our ability using the forces of one. The stones are alive. And anybody who's gone to the pyramids will tell you there is a weird energy about the pyramids, right? Whether you go in it or not, you feel the energy as you approach. And first, they have to be properly oriented at a place of initiation for those who wish to become purified or initiated in the channels for the law of one. And then secondly, they wanted to carefully guide the initiates into developing a healing of the people for whom they sought to aid and the planet itself. And then they go on, which this is the thing I like most, is pyramid after pyramid charged by the crystal and the initiate, were designed to balance the incoming energy of the one creation with the many and multiple distortions or many people of this planet. So there they tell you that pyramid after pyramid were charged, built, and everything by the initiate and the crystal itself. Which, at last count, I think they've counted up to 130 different pyramids or more on the planet. Not just the 3 in Egypt. There's like tons all over America, South America, Central America. Even talks that there's a bunch of them in Antarctica. There's some in China. There's some in Russia. There's some, they're everywhere. A lot of them have grown over, been grown over or whatever. And, aren't they look like hills or small mountains even. I mean, the White Pyramid in China is huge.
Now, do they ever, I won't say decay, that's the wrong word. Do they ever lose their charge from lack of attention?
No. They do not.
Sweet.
That's why, like, if you go there even today, to any of these pyramids, you'll feel it before you actually see it.
This instrument begins to lose energy. We ask for one more query or subject and then we shall take our leave for this time/space.
Pretty easy. That one, they're saying, hey, your instrument is getting weaker. We're going to take off. Give us one more question and we're out. So then he says, you might mention there was originally a capstone on the pyramid at the top. What was it made of and how you moved the heavy blocks to build the pyramid? What technique was used for that? Well then. Then we hear this.
I am RA. I request that we be asked this question in our next work time, as you would term the distortion sharing that our energies produce. If you have any questions about the proper use of this mind/body/spirit, we would appreciate your asking them now.
So they're basically saying, look, dude, I ain't got time to deal with this right now. You can ask it later. But when, yeah, whoops, sorry. If you were reading along, I forgot to forward that one. But ask that question in our next work time or next session, as you will, because this person is getting pretty weak at this point in time. So then he says, well, consider them asked, which is probably not something that you would say to somebody like this. But, you know, I mean, I don't have anything to go on. What is the proper use of this instrument? What should we do to maximize her ability, comfort, rejuvenation, etc.? And this is where we're getting into how to properly tune yourself to their energies. So pay close attention, because you can actually do this from a meditative state. Okay? And here we go.
I am RA. We are pleased that you asked this question, for it is not our understanding that we have the right/duty to share our perceptions on any subject but philosophy without direct question. However, this mind/body/spirit is not being correctly used and therefore is experiencing unnecessary distortions of body in the area of fatigue. The vibrations may well be purified by a simple turning to the circle of one and the verbal vibration while doing so of the following dialogue. Question: what is the law? Answer: the law is one. Question: why are we here? Answer: we seek the law of one. Question: why do we seek RA? Answer: RA is an humble messenger of the law of one. Both together, rejoice then and purify this place in the law of one. Let no thought form enter the circle we have walked about this instrument, for the law is one. The instrument at this time should be in trance. The proper alignment is the head pointed 20 degrees north by northeast. This is the direction from which the newer or new age distortions of love/light, which are less distorted, are emanating from, and this instrument will find comfort therein. This is a sensitive instrument, by which we mean the distortions which enter her mind/body/spirit complex come from any of her senses. Thus, it is well to do the following. Place at the entity's head a virgin chalice of water. The instrument at this time should be in trance. The proper alignment is the head pointed 20 degrees north by northeast. This is the direction from which the newer or new age distortions of love/light, which are less distorted, are emanating from, and this instrument will find comfort therein. This is a sensitive instrument, by which we mean the distortions which enter her mind/body/spirit complex come from any of her senses. Thus, it is well to do the following. Place at the entity's head a virgin chalice of water. To the center, the book most closely aligned with the instrument's mental distortions which are allied most closely with the law of one, that being the Bible that she touches most frequently. To the other side of the Bible, a small amount of sense, or incense, in a virgin censer. To the rear of the book symbolizing one, open to the Gospel of John, chapter 1, a white candle. The instrument would be strengthened by the wearing of a white robe. The instrument shall be covered and prone, the eyes covered. We feel that, though this is a complex of activity/circumstance and may seem very distorted from a purposeful teach/learning experience, these elaborations on the technique of trance will ease the mind distortions of those about the instrument as they perceive improvement in the instrument's distortions with regard to fatigue. We add only that if these teach/learning sessions are held during time/space during which your sun body does not light your room, that it is best to call the instrument before the lighting of the illuminatory mechanism. I am RA. I leave you in the glory and the peace of the one Creator. Rejoice in the love/light, and go forth in the power of the one Creator. Enjoy, we leave you. Adonai.
Bam. So they basically tell you exactly how to tune yourself, from how to position your body, what things you need around you. Now, I know already people are going to be like, they say Bible. Okay. So it says to the center, the book most closely aligned with the instrument's mental distortions, which are allied most closely with the law of one. And in this particular person, that being the Bible that she touches most frequently. So it's not saying it has to be the Bible, people. Knock it off before I smack you, all of you, upside the fucking head. No, it's saying the book that is most closely aligned with the instrument's thoughts about the law of one, or about the teachings of the law of one. And in this person's case, again, that happens to be the Bible.
So technically, it could be the book that we are taking this from as well.
Exactly. Now, it does give a particular chapter to look for in the Bible, but that, again, is due to them asking how to tune this instrument, not necessarily you. So on the other side of the Bible, a small amount of sense or incense. If you don't know what a censer is, if you ever go to a Catholic church or Greek Orthodox or Russian Orthodox church, the censer is the thing that they put the incense in and shake it around and it makes a lot of smoke. Okay, that's what a censer is. It could also be as simple as just a virgin, meaning unused bowl that you put the scents in, or the incense in. Pardon me, I got the hiccups. To the rear of the book, symbolizing one, open to the Gospel of John, chapter 1, a white candle. So they're basically saying to the rear of the book, symbolizing one, whatever that book happens to be,